Hello, parasocial besties. Quick question. When did concerts get so doggone dangerous? Over the last decade, there have been way too many stories about casualties at giant festivals. That shouldn't be happening. Is it too much to ask to be able to pay for my ticket and go enjoy my concert in peace without threat of gun violence or a bomb? And I know that this topic is really heavy. We're gonna try and keep it as light as possible while still paying respects to those who have passed on. Kind of like the same style that I would do my true crime videos in previously, before my life became a true crime story. If you know, you know. Sometimes I feel like really heavy topics are easier to digest when they're not presented in a super heavy way. And that's what I'm gonna try and do today. And you know what? We'll even start easy. We're gonna start with Fyre Festivals. No casualties, very few injuries as far as I'm aware. I'm pretty sure it was just injuries to the psyche, if we're being honest.
People are panicking, like tripping out. I hate you for telling me to come here.
There's no bed in that tent.
In a nutshell, Fyre Festival was the amalgamation of one man's manic episode. I am convinced of it. And that man's name is Billy McFarland. Farland. He had all that grandiose, big dick energy that you would expect from a histrionic Nepo baby. He was having business flops left, right, and center until he launched his little app. It was basically an app where you as the band could record yourself performing, and then agencies would scroll through, kind of TikTok style, find you and be like, okay, great, we want to hire you. They would facilitate the deals in the app. It seemed really convoluted. I really don't think it was that good of an idea, but you know what? Maybe it's just beyond my grasp. Either way, it's dead now. I tried to look it up. It does not exist. Funny enough, as I looked up the app, I saw that as of today, July 8th, 2025, he said, fuck it, I'm done.
Hi guys, this is Billy McFarland, and today I am taking the most famous festival brand, Fyre Festival, and putting it up for auction on eBay, starting at 1 cent. The eBay link is in my bio. Let's see who wants to smoke.
And he posted the trademark for Fyre on eBay, which I did not know was a thing. And it kind of looks like people can buy like little chunks of it, little shares. I don't know, it's really weird. I'll put the article if you guys want to look it up in the description. I guess go buy a chunk of Fyre Festival if you want it. And that's a stark contrast from the man who not even a month ago was like, we're gonna have Fyre Fest too. It's gonna be the best.
Okay.
For 3 or 4 days, you can escape reality. Kid got detained by the army.
Anyway, the Fyre app is a completely different tangent that we're not getting into right now. It was just a funny side quest. Actually, I guess the Fyre Festival is the side quest because what he really wanted to happen was for the Fyre app to blow up, but all it did was blow up his reputation. I don't know what we're doing with our hands here. So yeah, Billy was on his side quest and he was trying to get Fyre Festival to pop off. He apparently is an extremely charismatic person and he can really convince people that the event that he's throwing is going to be the event, which is exactly what happened with Fyre Festival. Mind you, I watched the documentary about Fyre Festival and I really realized that this man is a little magnet. Like, he really does draw people in. For example, this man.
Billy called and said, Andy, we need you to take one big thing for the team. They said, well, you're our wonderful gay leader, and if you will go down and suck Cunningham, the head of customs, you will save this festival. And I literally drove home, I drank some mouthwash, and I got into my car to drive across the island. I was going to do that to save the festival.
Okay, but remember how I said Billy's plans really never came to fruition? His businesses always fell through. He was just kind of a bad business boy. But eventually he kind of seemed to realize he sucks at business and started reaching out to other people. For example, Ja Rule. He doesn't really get brought up in all of Fyre Festival. I feel like he really kind of flew under the radar for this whole thing. Billy and Ja Rule also founded another company which had to do with credit cards.
It's a card, it's more than that. So I'm a technology entrepreneur. So it's a community-oriented payment tool that provides guidance, access, and experiences to a wide variety of lifestyle services and brands across the city. It's all community-based, and we're really just looking for interesting people across all industries, from the financial, technology, entertainment, finance sectors.
It's really irrelevant to this, so I don't want to get into it. But that was when they kind of started working together, was with the success of that company, Magnesis. So I feel like Ja Rule was like, okay, this guy's good to work with. We're gonna make a good team. Sure, I'll do this festival with you. And that's where you made your first mistake. But those last 6 months really fucked him over. I mean, it was really down to his bad planning and horrible business management. But also, I really do think bad luck just follows this guy around. So we're gonna start about 4 months out from Fyre Festival actually taking place, because that's when Billy finally found somewhere to host it. He did not have a location when he started advertising Fyre Festival. He was fully just winging this bitch. Luckily for him, he was able to find an island that was allegedly tied to Pablo Escobar. I don't know shit about nothing when it comes to the cartel. I'm not saying it was, I'm not saying it wasn't. All I'm saying is that the people who facilitated this rental of the island were were like, hey, listen, do not mention Pablo. He has no affiliation. Do not talk about it. And then Billy turned around and went, hey guys, you know, it sounds like a lot of fun partying with Pablo. So yeah, obviously the company facilitating this arrangement were like, no, you can't actually come to the island anymore because you literally immediately broke the one rule we had for you. Stop. So around this time, Billy was like, well, shit, I don't have a location. Maybe I need help. So he reached out to a consultant and they were basically like, listen, bestie, here's the thing. You're gonna need at least $50 million and you're also gonna need like another year. So maybe tap the brake and let's reassess. And Billy went, no, I'm already in it to win it. Side note, I completely forgot all of the celebrities that were involved in this. He had gotten a bunch of big names to be in his ad that's still up on his YouTube channel. You can fully go watch the Fyre Fest announcement video right now if you want. You had Kendall Jenner, Hailey Bieber, Emily Ratajkowski, Bella Hadid. Out of the $275,000 Kendall made from her part of the deal, she had to pay $90,000 in a settlement for basically not hashtag adding her stuff. And Hailey Bieber also was on record and was like, listen, I gave my share to charity once I figured out what was happening, so don't yell at me.
How much money did you get to appear in the Fyre Festival promo?
I am not going to share, but it made for a very generous donation to charity.
You gave the money away after you saw how great it was.
And the issue that a lot of people had is that they were acting like they were going to be flouncing all over the island with us peasants eating soggy cheese sandwiches. Then again, it's not like anyone really knew the accommodations would be so bad at that time.
There's no bed in that tent.
But honey, irregardless, tag your ads, ladies and ladies. Okay, back to the island. So they finally found another island. I put air quotes because it was not an island. But Billy never told anybody that, and he had everybody believing they were still going to Pablo's alleged island.
So we literally have 2 months left to find an island, do a deal with a landowner who actually owned like a great part of the island, whatever. Deal is done. Right, we have 60 days to pull this off.
So they end up at a place called Roker's Point in Great Exuma. But the kicker is that Roker's Point was a freaking parking lot that was in an abandoned resort development. And it certainly wasn't exclusive or private. I'm not really sure if Billy knew this, but there was a really popular event called the Exuma Regatta. And it was taking place the first weekend of Fyre Fest, which was bad news bears for the people who arrived and realized that they were going to be in soggy tents after a rainstorm happened that morning. And they couldn't call other hotels or resorts because they were all booked. Tickets started at a cool $500 and went up to $12,000 if you wanted your luxury experience. So now we're gonna skip ahead to like a month before the event, up to the event. Billy had realized he's in way over his head.
I started lying to get the money. I would literally wake up every day to a document that we called urgent payment sheet. And I had an amount of money that I had to acquire before the bank closed that day to stop the company from going underwater. I was literally day by day doing whatever it took.
He had taken out a loan that was one of those short-term loans that needs to be paid back real freaking quick. So he came up with a plan. At least that's how it reads to me. I don't know, maybe this was supposed to be the plan the whole time, but it's a little suspicious to me that Billy was like, guys, guess what? Cards won't work on the island, cash won't be accepted on the island, so I guess your only choice is really to pay through the Fyre app and take these neato little RFID bracelets that I give you to pay. As if that is actually easier than cash. Because he was making people use the Fyre app to pay, he ended up getting about $2 million, which was great for him because then he could take about 40% of that and pay off some of his short-term loan. But I feel like Billy had to have known that the RFID would be bullshit, considering the Wi-Fi on the island was trash. It is really hard to use wireless payment when your Wi-Fi sucks. But I guess that was part of the grift anyway. Although after everything I've learned about Billy, I feel like he fully knew and just did not care. He was worrying about his number one, himself. So remember at the beginning how I said this was supposed to be an ultra luxurious experience? They were supposed to have hired chefs that would cook for everybody. They were supposed to have these super luxurious geometric shaped domes, which actually would have been really sick. Either way, he didn't get those tents. What he did get were tents. There was a big ass downpour the morning that Fyre Fest was supposed to start, and I guess everyone's mattresses got completely soaked because of it. By the time the first group of people hit the tarmac, they realized pretty quickly that they were screwed. Nothing looked like it was supposed to. They were greeted with cheese sandwiches like what you get in high school after you've forgotten your lunch, or simply didn't feel like making one and decided that the cheese sandwiches were literally better than nothing. It's a cold grilled cheese. It's actually not that bad if you're desperate. But this was a $500 meal, not a forgotten lunch replacement. And because this was supposed to be a music festival, obviously they're gonna have big names there. One of those big names just so happened to be Blink-182.
I want to let you all know that I plan on masturbating in your town tonight.
They got wind of the tragedy that was Fyre Festival and were like, oh, just kidding, we're not performing, sorry. They tweeted, quote, We're not confident that we would have what we need to give you the quality of performances that we always give our fans, unquote. Okay, that is such a bullshit excuse. Your fans are already there. They're already expecting you. They're sitting in their tents waiting for you on their moist mattresses. The least you can do is let them be upset to all the small things. I don't know why, it just really bothered me. It felt like such a cop-out. Is that the actual reason? Or did you just not want to go to some bunk-ass concert? Honestly, it would have been kind of cool if they had pulled out a little acoustic, had a little raw jam sesh on the beach. I don't know. I feel like that would have been an awesome experience, especially for the people now suffering. But whatever, I wasn't there. I'm not them. In reality, it's not like Fyre Fest was super dangerous. It was just catastrophic financially, really.
Oh my god. I'm never gonna financially recover from this.
After everything was said and done, Fyre Fest put on their website in part, quote, "Due to circumstances outside of our control, the physical infrastructure was not in place on time, and we were unable to fulfill on that vision safely and enjoyably for our guests," unquote. And, quote, "We are working to place everyone on complimentary charters back to Miami today. This process has commenced, and the safety and comfort of our guests is our top priority. The festival is being postponed until we can further assess if and when we are able to create the high-quality experience we envision," unquote. It is not lost on me that they kind of went out of their way to imply that Billy and Ja Rule were hands clean, nothing to do with it, due to circumstances out of our control. It was Mother Nature, I don't know what to tell you, can't stop the rain. But like, also, Billy, baby, you probably should have gotten the tents that you originally promised so nobody had to deal with this in the first place. All of those circumstances were very much within your control. Things really spiraled once the consequences of your actions reared their ugly heads. Like I said earlier, Ja Rule kind of got out of this unscathed, and Billy ended up getting sued for millions and also spent 4 out of 6 years in jail. And luckily, hopefully, as of today, has learned his lesson and is actually going to let go of the Fyre Festival trademark in its entirety and just step away from the company altogether. And now we're gonna go from the silly to the serious.
Here we go. You ready for this? Because I sure am.
We're going to be talking about the murder of Christina Grimmie, which was an extremely preventable concert tragedy. So if you were very much an online millennial back in around 2009, you probably know who Christina Grimmie is. For those who don't know, at that time, YouTube was kind of the heyday of letting people pop off. People like Shawn Mendes, Charlie Puth, Justin Bieber.
I like that laugh.
They all got famous through YouTube. It really didn't take long for Christina to get traction on YouTube. She posted her first video in 2009, which was Hannah Montana's Don't Want to Be Torn, and then later that year she uploaded Miley Cyrus's Party in the USA, You've Got the Best of Both Worlds. It's like a funny little Disney Channel full circle moment. And actually she did get picked up pretty quickly by the Disney machine because Selena Gomez's mom, Mandy Teefey, was like, "You're really talented." By the time 2011 came around, she had released her first album called Find Me, which to me is a really quick turnaround time. From 2009 to 2011, and having Doritos commercials under her belt. And that was just the start, really. She started performing at all sorts of award shows and even got her own award, the American Music Awards New Media Honoree. And because Selena Gomez's mom was involved, Christina wound up on tour opening for Selena Gomez and the scene. It's really upsetting to think about how far Christina could have gone had her life not been ended so early on in her career. I feel like she had the talent to be on the same level as Selena Gomez with music. I don't know about acting, but like with music for sure. Now the murder ended up happening June 10th, 2016, which is actually almost 9 years to the day. The extra shitty thing is the fact that she really didn't super want to be on. It didn't seem like she was ungrateful and was like, "I don't want to be here, fuck my fans." It was more like when you're at your office job and you're like, "Damn, I really could be at home being more creative and doing these things I want to do." It was kind of like that from what I understand. The show she was performing at was at the Plaza in Florida, and it ended at around 10 p.m. She had a meet and greet scheduled, and I guess she really loved hanging out with her fans and showing a lot of gratitude toward them. This is one of those things that's kind of a highlight of the evening. She'd been doing her meet and greets for around a half hour when a man named Kevin Loibel showed up. There's evidence that shows that he was lying in wait for her the entire show. You can see him in the back just waiting for her to wrap up. So about a half hour after the show ends, Kevin shows up and Christina turns around to give him a hug, arms open. That's when Kevin pulled out a 9mm Glock pistol and ended Christina's life. He shot her once in the head and twice in the chest. She was rushed to Orlando Regional Hospital and passed away at 11:59 officially. But what happened to Kevin? Well, he was tackled by Marcus, Christina's older brother. Marcus had been sent on tour to keep Christina safe, watch over her, protect her. Marcus was working the merch table right next to Christina when the shots went off, and he immediately went into protector mode. He tackled Kevin, who had realized that his gun was jammed, and so it was making it impossible for him to end his own life. And after he was able to get free from Marcus, he pulled out the second gun and ended his own life, all before he could face any consequences for what he had just done. And the shittiest part is nobody really knows why it happened. During interview with Kevin's friends and family, all they really got was the fact that Kevin started like cleaning up his act physically before the shooting had happened. He'd started working out and going to the gym, whitening his teeth. So people around him noticed that, but only one person knew about his obsession with Christina. His whole family and friend group denies that they knew anything about it, at least again according to the documentary. But I really don't want to get caught up in Kevin's head. I don't want to spend my time speculating on what might have caused him to snap, because that's not the point of this video. What I want to talk about is the fact that security was so lax that this man was able to bring in not only 2 guns, but a hunting knife. How the fuck did that happen? The Grimmies had initially filed a wrongful death suit against both AEG Live and the Plaza Live, and at the end of the day, they ended up dropping the case. I'm not really sure what happened. Nobody seems to know what happened. The Grimmies may have very well been paid outside of court and just felt like, whatever, I'm not doing this anymore. Either way, from a legal standpoint, it really kind of feels like nobody ever had to take accountability for this, at least from what I could find. I guess if you want to call it a good thing, there was a good thing that came of this. The Grammys were able to release a few posthumous albums that Christina had previously recorded and just really hadn't gotten the opportunity to get out yet. They also released a song that Christina had recorded for her mom, who was battling breast cancer at the time, called Little Girl. There was also this third remix collab looking album that came out in 2021 called Back to Life. And the cool thing is that because it was the Grammys who were in charge of these albums and music and works, they were able to take the funds from the sales and put it toward the Christina Grimmie Foundation, which helps support families that are victims of gun violence and also breast cancer. I'll put a link in the description for the charity, that way if you guys want to donate, you totally can. Okay guys, we're gonna get through one more super heavy case and then we're gonna get to the gas station. What's the gas station? You'll see. It's my cheesy little thing that I love so much. We're going to be talking about the Manchester Arena bombing that happened at the Ariana Grande Dangerous Woman tour back in 2017. This one is another clear and blatant case of shitty security. I got most of my information from a documentary called Worlds Collide, the Manchester bombing. It was really informative. 10 out of 10, go watch. So all of this starts with 2 brothers, Salman al-Bidi and Hashim al-Bidi. They were both raised in a household that seemed to work off of extremist beliefs. For example, their dad sent them both off to fight in the Libyan civil war as teens, where they apparently interacted with someone in Al-Qaeda who taught them to make a bomb, allegedly. Them being sent off to the Libyan civil war and then interacting with Al-Qaeda seems to be kind of a starting point for the downhill trajectory of their life. It's really sad when you see cases like this. I just wish he'd used his brains for good, not evil. One of the craziest things is that MI5 had Salman on their radio twice, but both times were a case of mistaken identity, so they were like, meh, it's fine. Even though it very much was not fine. Because what MI5 did know is that Salman was at high risk for being radicalized. In fact, they have a program in the UK, according to my research, that aids in helping teens that have started the radicalization process and helps bring them back to earth, and is meant to protect the kids that are raised in extremist households. But he fell through the cracks, and now here we are. There are a few motivations that were listed that really could have contributed to Salman doing what he did. There was a theory that Salman could have been motivated by the deaths of Muslim children after Americans got involved in the Syrian civil war. Another potential motivating factor was after Salman's friend was ran over and stabbed by a Manchester gang. Allegedly, according to a family friend who was at the funeral with Salman and his brother, Salman had said that he had vowed revenge. Now, really quickly before we actually get into the bombing, I need to explain what the city center is and what it looks like. The best way it seems like you can describe it is it's essentially a breezeway between the Manchester Victoria Station and the Manchester Arena. It was also one of the busiest places, which is probably why Salman picked it. So the day of the concert was a busy day for Salman. He got a taxi and went to the arena, scoped it out, came home, got his bomb, and then went back and camped out at the city center for hours waiting for the concert to end. Meanwhile, he's this tiny little guy running around with this giant conspicuous backpack, and only one person said anything to him. And it wasn't even security, it was a random bystander.
Witness A says that he asked the man, "What have you got in your rucksack?" but got no response. Witness A then said, "It doesn't look very good, you know, what you see with bombs and such. You, with a rucksack like this in a place like this. What are you doing? The man responded, I'm waiting for somebody, mate.
The guy who approached him really didn't seem to have a problem based on his interview. But the point is, even though attention was brought to Salman, he still managed to blow up the city center. At around 9 p.m., Ariana Grande started her concert. 5 BTP constables were meant to be patrolling the arena. By the time the bombing went off, only 4 were there. The 2 that were there had left on a long lunch break. It was at about 11:12, 11:15-ish that the guy that we had talked about earlier, who came off a little racist, had went up and told one of the constables, hey, there's a guy being real sketchy, can we do something about that? But he was told by the BTP constable that they already knew. And one of those Showtech employees were like, I don't want to be called racist. He said that he did try to get through and report through his little walkie-talkie, but it was so overrun in the airwaves that it wasn't possible. At exactly 10:31 p.m., Salman detonated his bomb. He had packed the bomb full of nuts, bolts, nails, just projectiles in order to hurt the maximum amount of people. And it was extremely effective, unfortunately. So much so that by the end of the day, 22 people were dead and 1,000 some odd more were injured. That's like 7% of the people who went that were injured in one way or another. That is way too many. Maximum, there should be like 5 injuries per concert, and those injuries should really only come from either the mosh pit or dehydration because the person partied too hard and accidentally overheated during the show, not because a man with violent tendencies decided he needed some sort of retribution. One of the biggest issues that was noted during this was the lack of urgency. There were 2 calls that were made immediately in the aftermath of the bomb. One of them had said that they had heard a bomb, and another one had said that they heard a bomb and gunshots. The problem with them having said gunshots is that then Operation Plato was enacted. Operation Plato was a protocol that was enacted after a bunch of terrorist attacks had happened in the UK. Long story short, because Operation Plato was deployed, it made it hard for rescuers and first responders to get in. They had to wait until they were sure that there were no gunshots. They had to go in slowly. They had to be extremely careful, and that's because they were under the impression that because they heard gunshots, there was the implication that there were 2 people. Like, I understand that it was for safety purposes, and also, it never should have taken that long. There's really no knowing how many people could have been saved had they been able to act more quickly. Of course, ISIS came out and claimed this and said that Salman was a soldier who detonated a bomb in a quote-unquote crowd of crusaders in Manchester. During the investigation, it was found out that Hashem, Salman's little brother, was heavily involved, and he ended up falling on the sword for Salman. After the bombing, Ariana held a concert called One Love Manchester that was intended to help contribute to the We Love Manchester Emergency Fund. She also re-released her song One Last Time and a cover of Over the Rainbow. It was a really bold choice made, too, to give the victims of the bomb tickets for free in order to attend this new event. Maybe I'm a chicken shit, but you could not pay me to go to another large gathering for at least a decade and years of intensive trauma therapy. But I guess the gesture was nice for those who still wanted to attend an Ariana concert. I know that there were 4 exits. Some people were able to completely escape the carnage. They exited through one of the other 3 doors. They were fine. Obviously, I'm sure they're still traumatized. I'm not trying to minimize what they went through. I'm just saying they're probably the ones who appreciated the free tickets more than the victims and the families of the victims. There was also another kind of positive that came out of this situation called Martin's Law. There was a man named Martin Hett who was only 13 feet away from Salman when he detonated the bomb. Martin's body was so affected by the blast that he had to be identified by tattoos, and because of his death, his family did go out of their way to try and bolster change. Because of their perseverance, they were able to pass a law called Martin's Law. His law requires that venues that are hosting events with larger than 200 people actually have plans and trains their staff in the event of another terrorist attack. Here's to hoping that we never have to use Martin's Law, but thank you to Martin's family for coming up with some sort of potential hopeful failsafe. Oh my god. Okay, everyone, shake it out. We're through the first half, okay? We have one more heavy one, and then we're gonna get silly. But first, we need to make a stop at the gas station.
Wanna go for a ride?
Sure, Ken.
Jump in.
Art Block is making this album cover for their friend. I will pay you to make me an album cover that looks like that, except it has Edward, Bella, Jacob, and Rasputin. Let me know if you're taking commissions. Not only that, but they cooked for their family and went to the gym 4 times. That's a very hard thing to do all in 1 week. Oh my god. At least for those of us out there who struggle with mental things. Good job, parasocial bestie. Okay, back to the video. Okay, now everybody deep breaths. Now that we're re-regulated, we're gonna talk about Astroworld. Off the jump, I fucking hate Travis Scott. Especially after this, I'm not going to be nice about him. If he's your ride or die and you love him, you're gonna want to skip this because I'm about to be really fucking mean. Because I think Travis Scott is a trash human who facilitates and encourages violence and mayhem. And it really fucking pisses me off because he's doing it to children. He's doing it to young people. A lot of his audience are too young to understand the consequences of their actions. Clearly, otherwise people wouldn't have died at this 2021 Astroworld. Also, I did not realize that Astroworld was a recurring event. You learn something new every day. But then when I did learn that it had prior events, it pissed me off even more because this is not the first time that Travis has gone out of his way to wreak havoc at one of his festivals. Honestly, it's kind of surprising it took this long for so many casualties to happen, considering Travis calls his fans ragers, and he definitely encourages them to go hog wild at every single event. At the 2021 Astroworld, there were teens busting through barricades, getting gassed the fuck up because Travis would want it. And Travis sees this happening. It's happened every single year at his Astroworld festivals, and he didn't put out any sort of PSA to be like, hey guys, cool your jets this year, let's be orderly and make it in and everyone be safe, let's not bum rush security who's meant to keep you safe. No, he's like, hell yeah brother, do what you want, I don't care, I just work here. And I'm not done ripping into him because we have specific events where Travis himself encouraged the chaos. Do you guys remember Switzerland 2015 where a viral video went around? Travis was encouraging people to beat the shit out of a child who Travis thought was trying to steal his shoe.
Come here, bitch. Get that motherfucker, get him. You tried to take my shoe? Fuck him up, fuck him up, fuck him up. Get him out of here. Get him out of here.
Whether or not he was trying to steal his shoe doesn't matter. Do not tell your audience to attack another audience member, especially because it was a kid from what I understand. Travis also seems to be a big fan about saying screw the barricades because multiple times he's encouraged his fans to rush the barricades. In 2015 at Lollapalooza, he was like, hell yeah dudes, jump the barricades, jump into security. And then in April 2017, he encouraged another fan to jump from a balcony into the crowd.
His leg.
The guy broke his leg.
Get well soon, bud.
And then was interviewed in GQ and said, quote, sometimes the kids are just so into it that it just comes out of them. I always am just surprised by the things that happen at the shows, unquote. As if he's not the one on stage going, go crazy, blah.
So stupid.
A month after the April incident, he was arrested under suspicion of inciting a riot, disorderly conduct, and endangering the welfare of a minor. And in order to promote Astroworld 2022, he used footage from 2019 that was clearly full of kids going buck wild. And that was the point. He wanted people to see how crazy it was, how much fun it was. It's a lawless land. No one cares. Come to Astroworld. Fuck shit up. That's very much the vibe, and that's very much what people expect from Travis, it seems like. Especially his ragers. Both the shows and the fan base. I do not think he's a very good dude. I do not think he deserves his platform. And it's specifically due to shit like this. He doesn't care about other people if it's gonna affect either his bottom line or his ability to have a good time. At least that's my perspective. And the kicker is that 2019 Astroworld that he was so proud of had hospitalization. 3 people were hospitalized because they were too busy being trampled at Astroworld 2019. He is not good at crowd control. He is the Pandora's box that's opened at every single festival. I'm going to be basing a lot of this section on that new documentary that came out about Astroworld. That's actually what kind of instigated this. I saw Beyonce almost fall out of her flying car, and then I watched the Astroworld documentary and thought, you know what, concerts are really kind of dangerous. I'm gonna go ahead and yap about it for an hour. A scary amount of his fans in the documentary were like, the vibe was just show up, be yourself, be half clothed, literally nobody cares, do whatever, man. Violence is not only accepted, it is encouraged. This is not a lawless land. Rules still apply at Astroworld, I promise. Okay, so what happened? Specifically, Travis's performance is what caused a bunch of the chaos at Astroworld. Leading up to that wasn't looking good. It was definitely overcrowded. People had been just hopping the barricades. People without tickets. They just wanted to be there, and Travis is like, hell yeah, brother, get in here. He didn't give a shit. He just wanted his ragers to rage, you know what I mean? So SZA was playing at the stage right next to Travis. There was a little bit of a gap between the end of SZA's performance and Travis's performance, obviously, so people people could go from her stage over to his. The crowd was set up in kind of like a little cross formation. It was intended so that way security and medics could go in between in the clear areas to help who they needed help. Didn't work that way, but that was the intention. The issue with that layout, though, was that in the front left quarter, a lot of people flooded in from SZA's show. It pretty much immediately caused mayhem. There were people reporting that they couldn't even control their own body. They were involuntarily swaying. They were saying they couldn't breathe, especially from the left side. And mind you, this is right when Travis's show starts. He had had a countdown going. People were rushing to the stage. Then obviously, by the time the timer does get down to 0, people are already just like amped and freaking out. But because there were so many people amped and freaking out on the left side, it caused a crowd surge. Apparently, when a crowd surge happens, you can get compression asphyxiation and you just literally run out of air. That's why nobody could catch their breath. When that happened, there were people literally falling on top of each other. They were stacking up one by one. There were accounts in the documentary of people who were lucky to still be alive. For example, one man was on the ground literally fighting for his life, suffocating, and one of the other attendees just got out of nursing school and almost died at Astroworld herself, saw this man suffering and fighting for his life, and was able to resuscitate him using her skills. But she was one who also fell over, couldn't breathe, and had to be rescued by someone else. It really was an inevitability that something would go wrong and people would die. And it's not like nobody knew what was going on. From the initial crowd surge, there was complete panic and chaos in the left side. There was a guy who had gone named Aiden Cruz who had lost one of his friends in the crowd and was like, holy shit, I need to get up there, figure out where my friend is, and alert them that something is wrong. So him and another concert goer crawl up onto a platform where security is and are like, you need to stop the show. And they're sitting there like, get down, get down, get down. You don't need to be up here. And it's like, okay, listen, I understand that initially security's knee jerk is get the fuck out of here. What are you doing up here? Get back on the ground. But after a minute of someone being like, no, there's literally people dying, can we stop the show? Maybe stop the show. I really feel like there should be some sort of flare gun for outdoor events like this. Each show has a coordinating color, so if something goes extremely off the rails, you don't have to shout and try and get anyone's attention to stop the show. I don't know, that's probably a crazy idea, but you get my point. There needs to be some sort of visual aid to help when chaos breaks out like this. People were literally dying in the crowd, and Travis was on stage having the time of his goddamn life. Except for at one point. The show did stop for a second. There was some sort of injury that had taken place. Travis's attention was gotten, and instead of actually completely stopping the show and just refusing to perform, he was vocalizing at one of the injured attendees. Not to mention, out of these 50,000 plus people, there were only 2 members from Live Nation who had the ability to completely stop the show outside of Travis himself. There have been talks like, well, what could Travis do? What, was he going to stop the show? Yes, he was going to stop the show. In my opinion, he could have so easily been like, oh shit, something's wrong. Let me put the microphone physically on the ground and just refuse to perform until something is done about this chaos. And he was just blissfully unaware of the left side suffering. I don't know if he like couldn't see what was happening or if he wasn't listening, but Live Nation had the ability to talk to him through his earpiece and tell him to stop. Actually, something I know I didn't mention yet is the fact that within a few minutes of the show starting, there were texts that were released from concert organizers that specifically state that they know that the crowd is too big and it is going to get out of control. At 9 p.m., there were texts that said, I would pull the plug, but that's just me. I know they'll try to fight through it, but I would want it on record that I didn't advise this to continue. Someone's going to end up dead. And actually, you know what? It was very obvious that even the right side was struggling because there was another text sent at 9 p.m. that said, stage right of Maine is getting crushed. This is bad. Pulled tons over the rail unconscious. There's panic in people's eyes. This could get worse quickly. And they just were responded with a yes. That's it. These are people's lives and you're just gonna respond essentially, okay. Within minutes of Travis's show starting, Houston PD were called and they were just super lax about it. They were literally getting calls of this show is out of control. People can't breathe. People are passing out. We need medical attention. This is really dangerous. We need help. And they were like, okay, we'll get there in a sec. Don't you worry. And the party raged on for an additional 40 minutes before the person I talked about earlier had the show stopped for them. And then at 9:51,
there is a transcript of a conversation between Live Nation and the audio engineer.
This is really bad. I think 2 people are dead. Go ahead and shut it down at 10, unquote. Hello? It's 9:51. 2 people are dead. It should have been shut down 51 minutes ago. What the fuck do you mean? Also, just go ahead and let Drake come out first, because he was supposed to follow up Travis. Let the man perform. Who cares? And by 10:13. The show is still going on. So much for the 10 o'clock cutoff point. After everything was said and done, Travis Scott came out with the shittiest apology that was very woe is me. I'm not really going to take responsibility for anything. And then in December of 2021, tried to go on another little redemption arc interview and was like, oh, I didn't know there was no communication. Girl, you're the headliner. This is your festival. What do you mean? I don't care if you didn't have communication. Take responsibility for your festival. You have eyeballs, you have ears. You saw that someone was already struggling 40 minutes in. You literally had to stop the show. What do you mean? Travis seems to love to act stupid when it comes to any sort of responsibility with all the injuries and deaths that surround him at his shows. In total, there were 10 recorded deaths from the Astroworld tragedy, with the youngest being 9. As far as I'm aware, any sort of legal ramifications have been fairly minimal, and Travis continues to incite violence. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and lighten up the mood. We're gonna be talking about concert mishaps where thank God nobody died, but boy oh boy were there near misses. I know that performers have multiple shows, multiple nights. There's usually not any sort of major disaster that will generally happen. I get it. Normally it's safe. These are just examples as to why I think we need to tap the brakes on some of the visual effects and maybe chill out with the flying cars. Beyonce is gonna crush young Jessica and her Girl Scout troop if she's not careful. Speaking of Beyonce, let's talk about the car that threatened to crush a bunch of people. Beyonce was on her Cowboy Carter tour and she was in the middle of 16 carriages when her car decided it was a good time to crowd surf.
It started out so good. She was serving looks and vocals. This is the moment things started going south. We didn't notice how bad the tilt was until she stopped the concert. She stopped right above us. We were a little freaked out. We thought it was all part of the concert. They had to open room on the floor to land the car.
She handled it like a champ. She was very like, get me down now before I have a meltdown. But like, how did this happen? How did nobody test the wires for this giant, massive, heavy-ass car that's floating above a crowd? Which begs the question, must we fly above the crowd? Pink, looking at you. You could not pay Pink to stay on the ground. And then there's 2022 MGK and his helicopter.
The helicopter broke.
He was doing his mainstream sellout tour, and it was just his entry when this happened. Honestly, MGK kind of strikes me as one of those wannabe hero action movie guys. So he's probably just living his best Arnold Schwarzenegger life right now. Like, he looks scared, but he's probably like, damn, I look cool. Dude, and of course, Katy Perry's there. He went into space one time and became obsessed with the idea of floating around. Maybe this will calm her down. This will keep her grounded, literally. Well, that's that on that. Probably won't be doing such a heavy video again anytime soon because that was a lot. It took me 2 hours and 14 minutes to record this, and I had already recorded an hour's worth before I was like, this fucking sucks, I'm redoing it. Oh my god, this one was a heavy, dark one. Next week, I think we're doing something chill. We're probably gonna talk about JoJo or something. I don't know. She's been up to her bullshit lately. If I earned your subscription with this video, please do not forget to join the Parasocial Bestie Club. It's super easy. You just hit subscribe. Also, a like and a comment really helps. It's a super easy way to support me for free. Bye.